What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of The Kingdom Says. We are back for Chiefs training camp, which has basically officially kicked off today, Tuesday, July 16th.
He showed up today.
It's the first day that people have reported to Chiefs training camp, and it is great. It's a very exciting day. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. I am joined today by my two usual co-hosts. We've got Kyle Henning on the top right of the screen. Kyle, how are we doing tonight?
Doing all right. Pretty excited. I've been off all day, so I got to chill and watch the press conferences and watch all the guys show up to camp and find out that Leo snuck in while Patrick was talking so that nobody really saw him or knew he was there, and a couple other things. And there were some surprises to some folks today, so we'll go over a bunch of stuff. I'm excited to talk to you guys. It's been a few weeks. We had the 4th of July. Happy 4th, everybody. Hope everybody had a good, safe 4th of July. Nobody lost any digits. Jason Pierre-Paul.
We're all here.
Man.
You can't really tell for me over here. For this
I'm good. I got all mine. I didn't even. Weird note. Last year we went to Florida for the 4th, and I didn't shoot any fireworks for the first time in my entire life. Was last year because we were down on vacation and there was a big show. Because of all the stuff that was going on this year and everything, I didn't really have time and didn't really have anything to do to shoot any this year. But luckily, the entirety of my neighborhood decided that they were all commercial grade fireworks employees, and they were shooting literally bombs off over our house all night. So that was cool. Yeah,
that will get you. Also joining us, of course, Arrowhead Tom at the bottom left of the screen. Tom, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Feels good to be back in my natural spot down here.
Yeah, that's true.
The last time, the stuff was around mid introductions, and I threw you off. So, I'm good, man. It's been a weirdly busy summer, and usually this is the period where I'm almost counting down to training camp, but it just snuck up on me this year. So I am staying busy and excited to be a little bit closer to football.
Yeah, just a little bit. We are about to actual football. And then join us at the bottom right of the screen, friend of the program, very frequent podcast guest of ours, is the managing editor of AtoZ Sports, Mr. Charles Goldman. How are you doing tonight, Charles?
I'm doing wonderful, guys. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited about training camp. Excited that it's finally here. It's fun getting to kind of see the guys report in today. I don't know if you guys caught it, but one of our rookies, Hunter Norzad, he brought a nice little plant with him to training camp. You know, that's like a little ambiance for the room.
Hey, man, that was not just a plant. That was a Lego plant.
You
water that boy. Oh, it's a Lego. It's 100% a Lego. Yeah, and I think it's a transformer, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure that thing transforms into a robot.
No, but hold on. You can't talk about the plant and not talk about the fact that he's rocking the Ulta bag with that gorgeous lock and that well-trimmed facial hair.
You also can't leave out the giant case of white monster that he had in his hand with that Ulta bag too.
This man, he made the team on that picture alone, in my mind.
That and he's probably your backup center.
Yeah. Put him in on pen and write him in with pen, Sharpie.
Write him in. Yeah, so it's a fun day.
It's the white the white monster drinks, and I feel like there's some sort of connection there, being that he kind of looks a little bit like Game of Thrones Jon Snow. So the white monster drinks, King of the North. There's something going on there. I don't know.
Yeah.
And where did he play his college ball, Charles?
Penn State, right?
Yeah. It's not exactly warm in the winter in Penn State, if you guys aren't familiar.
Yeah.
It's not the warmest. The Midwest gets a little chilly in the wintertime.
He might have been man in the wall for all we know.
I don't understand these references. I didn't watch any of them.
Jesus.
But it sounds like a great time, It sure does sound
like Garrett, you didn't watch any of the show because it started when you were 12, and the books were written 30 years before you were born.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, probably. I get it though. The dragons, the houses. That's that show, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. You get it. I get it.
There will be no House of the Dragon spoilers on here, guys. I won't give any of those away if you're not caught up.
There's dragons in it, though. I'll tell you that's a spoiler. Okay, so Chiefs training camp is here. It's a very fun day. A lot of all the So today, all the rookies and quarterbacks were to report, as well as a couple, injured guys or guys coming off of injury or just
anybody doing rehab.
Yeah,
Anybody
pretty much.
doing rehab.
Or anybody who even just was, kind
or
of
is trying to rehab an image.
Right. So there's a good showing, obviously, and then the rest of the team will show up Friday, I do believe, for.
Is that what Chris said? Isn't that what Chris said was Friday when
yeah,
Patrick asked him if he was going to be there today?
Because Chris Jones let everybody know that he is very excited to go to training camp this year. He is, but he's not that excited. He's gonna respect the process. Andy told him to come Friday. Pat told him to come Tuesday. He said, Pat, I'm sorry. Andy told me to come Friday. I gotta come Friday. I can't come Tuesday. That's not the process. So, but yeah, it was good to see all the guys get into the building. Obviously, the press conferences today, we heard from numerous folks, including Patrick Mahomes himself, who had some very good content. What Mr. Charles Goldman had a couple articles about today. He had I think he said 7 articles these past 2 days. He's already on full tilt for the season. He's ready to get all the content. So yeah, what starting us off here? What quotes do we want to break down from Mahomes?
So I kind of want to lead with this for Charles, because Charles wrote an article that took me 25 minutes to find before we started this show, because Twitter's doing stupid things. About 7 Chiefs that need to put training camp performances together, and there's some obvious names on there, like Sky Moore, like Kadarius Toney, like those guys. Felix needs to have a big camp. Those are all names that you expect to see on there. Wanye is also a name that's on there, and because of Patrick's comments from the press conferences today, which if you didn't see those, always go back and check out the Chiefs YouTube channel. They usually put them up there. If not, there's a bunch of your favorite reporters that cover the team that stream the press conferences to their YouTube channels. He's probably already wrote stuff out about it. Go hop on Twitter. There's probably quotes on there with clips on there from him. So, all that said, Patrick basically, without saying it, he basically said it's Kingsley's job to lose. And we all kind of thought that was the case. And I know you wrote about the 7 players before Patrick said all this. So kind of comparing what you wrote in your article, which I'll let you kind of explain to everybody, versus now what you're thinking with Pat's statements today. I just kind of want to get where you're at with that, because I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that was always kind of a sense that I had from the moment that Kingsley was drafted, that, this is a guy who they drafted him highly. I mean, you guys remember the chatter like the day before, the draft started. People were saying like Chiefs like this guy enough they could take him in the first round, right?
You were saying
Xavier Worthy.
Actually, the card was already written out, Charles. In case you didn't know that, the card was actually already pre-filled out with left tackle to be specific. Yeah.
So, I forgot about that.
And I don't think that that chatter was necessarily false. I do think that they really liked Kingsley. I know after the draft there was some of that stuff about the fella that ended up going to whatever other team it was, the kid out of Washington, Rosengarten. Right? And how they felt, the team that drafted him felt that, the Chiefs was the Ravens. Yeah. I think Eric DaCosta said something on a podcast and was like, we thought the Chiefs were going to take him. We wanted this guy, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Boy, it's fun to make teams gamble on players because you're good and they don't want you to have them.
Right. And so I think, from the moment that they took Kingsley, they kind of had this plan, this idea in mind that, hey, like this kid who at his height, he could be ready to be our starting left tackle in year 1, and that they're going to give him every opportunity to prove that. And I think, they kind of split repetitions a little bit early on through OTAs, and towards the end of mandatory minicamp, I feel like those repetitions kind of got a little bit more skewed toward Kingsley getting a little bit more work. Now, some of that had to do with just situationally, because Wanye was getting some work at left guard with Joe Thuney being out. So that was a little bit of what was going on there towards the end of mandatory minicamp. But I'm not surprised, to see that Andy and Patrick are both talking this kid up, because I think at the end of the day, they're all very hopeful that he's going to be the guy. And that's not necessarily a indictment of Wanye, so to speak. I still think he can be a good player for this team. And, the reason he landed on that list for me was not so much that competition for the starting left tackle job. Yes, that's important. And if he wants to win that, he absolutely needs to perform during training camp. But it's also just so that he doesn't get lost in the shuffle, so that he continues to be, a valuable asset to this team, whether that's, Phillips slotting in for a Joe Thuney if he's not ready to get back out there quite yet with this pectoral injury, or simply playing swing tackle for the team and being the guy who comes in off the bench if someone gets banged up, like he did just last year with Donovan Smith, right? So I think really it's just about him putting together a solid camp to make sure that he doesn't fall into a situation where it's like, okay, we ended up with another guy who's basically Lucas Nyang and isn't playing for us. He doesn't really fit anywhere, and he's just kind of there as depth, right? And not even depth that's used. So I think that that's kind of the key for Wanye, and I'm confident that he's not going to lay down. Right, he's not going to lay down and take it. He's going to put up a fight in this left tackle battle, and he's not going to make it easy for the rookie. But I do think at the end of the day, it is Kingsley's job to lose.
So from that perspective, because in your article you do talk about how it's Kingsley's job to lose, and that was written before Patrick said it out loud, pretty much is what you said. And Andy's never going to commit to anything in July, guys. Ever, ever, never, ever. So when you listen to Andy's response in the press conference to the questions about Kingsley, he's like, yeah, we really like him. We're going to make it a battle. And Patrick's like, all right, it's Kingsley's to lose. So you're going to have to read between the two of them and just parse it out. But I think what you said about minicamp, which is stuff that all of us don't get to see because that's all behind closed doors and all hidden and whatnot, for the most part, with Andy and co, is the fact that Wanye was the player that they were most willing to move to Thuney's spot. They've also played him at right tackle before, backing up Jawan. We saw that last year some. They were more willing to do that. And I think Wanye's potential to be that swing tackle or that swing offensive lineman, not even swing tackle at this point, just swing offensive lineman,
backup lineman,
was always higher than Lucas's, because Lucas came in with a botched medical problem from TCU, and it took and they had to go back in and try to fix that, and took a long time to try to build that back up, and he just never got back from that injury, which, as a big 300-pound dude, a big leg injury like that where you have to have multiple surgeries, it's hard to come back from those. So hip, it was a hip, wasn't it? His hip? Yeah, which is, I don't know if you know that or not, but I think it's connected to the leg, Tom, last time
Pretty important. Pretty important.
Yeah, so
bones connected to the
thigh bones. Yep. Garrett remembers that song too.
I know. See, I'm glad you feel it because I didn't remember it.
Yeah, so from that perspective, I always thought Wanye had a little more, but I just find it interesting that they're not just, because there were questions about Lucas switching sides. There weren't those kind of questions from Wanye, because he had done it at Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit. And so with that perspective and that thought process, with a guy like Hunter Norzad, who we talked about at the beginning, there were conversations all draft about him playing all 5 spots. So if you can get Wanye to be able to play 3 to 4 spots, and you have a guy like Hunter Norzad that you can use as a backup center that can also play all 5 spots, that's Andy Reid, Andy Heck Dream Street mode. Like, they love guys that can play all the spots or multiple spots. That's what they've done with this offensive line for the last decade, basically.
Yeah, and there's a chance that there's a spot potentially up for grabs in the next year or so.
One.
Well, maybe so.
For sure. They're going to have to make a choice.
Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are both due for extensions next year.
Joe Thuney.
And Joe Thuney's, so
they're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah, and as of 15 minutes before we actually started recording this podcast, the Broncos and Quinn Miners agreed on a 4-year, $80 million deal, which puts him in the top 5 guard pay in the NFL. So that's a pretty penny. And I would guess Trey Smith would easily get all of that, and if not more.
Oh, he's getting
No,
paid.
Trey
by
Smith's going to
somebody.
reset the market. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Let me say that, because sometimes you get weird contracts or whatever. But we talked about this early in the offseason about how this is the valuation of the guard and of interior line kind of started in Kansas City when they started rebuilding their line. And they started with kind of an inside-out philosophy. And, Joe Tooney, Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, like all in one offseason. But and I think as we're talking about like reading between the lines and all that stuff, like, you could just trust me when I say future Hall of Famer, left tackle, Kingsley Suamataia. So,
Mataia.
No way you just butchered
whatever.
You gotta go for it, man. You gotta go for it.
Come on,
You gotta
Tom.
go for it.
Tom, say it again.
I'm not used to Tia. I'm used to Tia.
Suamataia.
Suamataia. That's what I said.
No,
Suamataia. You're putting a second E in it.
Listen, this is
Tom,
not.
this can't be your Hall of Fame line. You can't pronounce his name right. Kingsley Suamataia. Come on.
We didn't listen. You guys didn't know how to pronounce his name before.
But now we do. All right. You were this is your guy.
It's fine.
That's like me not knowing how to pronounce Xavier Worthy's name.
That is completely different.
I could never. It can never be.
There's about 10 letters of different. I'm not talking to you until you finish puberty. Let's move on.
So the offensive line situation will be one to monitor coming up training camp.
This is a good transition for what I kind of was hoping to talk and question and ask Charles about next.
Before we move on from the offensive line, let's just talk it out a little bit, though.
Go ahead, Charles.
Because there's a couple things there. Obviously, the two contract year situations that we're looking at are Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Now, with Creed, let me ask you guys a question. When was the last time the Chiefs paid a center?
Never.
Rodney Hudson?
No, they let him go.
They did give him one contract before they traded.
I thought they.
And it wasn't like a big deal that first one that they gave him. It wasn't the reset the market deal.
No, it wasn't. So
Mitch Morse
and Mitch Morse, he didn't even sniff it. He was a solid center, a guy that was well liked in the building.
Yeah.
I just don't know if the Chiefs.
Kaiser's large adult son.
And this was all under Andy Reid's tenure, right? This was all while he was in the building. Mind you, different GM for both those situations. But still, I have to wonder if that's just not a position that they value paying a premium to. Like, are they going to give Creed a contract that is resetting the center market? Because that's what he's going to be looking for, what he potentially deserves. I mean, first 2 years in the league, helped lead the team to Super Bowl. And just I think that it's an interesting question. And obviously they brought on Hunter, who can play some center, but there's another kid, Griffin McDowell, who was former tight end, who played offensive tackle at Chattanooga. He switched to offensive tackle when he goes to Chattanooga. I think he played tight end at Florida. Now he's playing center for the Chiefs. He's a developmental guy to watch and someone that could kind of sneak up this depth chart a little bit for Kansas City, potentially with, a situation where, hey, you might be moving on from your starter. So you better have some potential options, right?
I gotta have options. Yeah.
I have to wonder too with Trey Smith. Obviously, right guard's not considered quite the premium position that other offensive line positions are. However, the guard market has exploded this offseason, and if he's looking at potentially being the top free agent in that class, that's going to mean you have to offer him something at the top of market if you're going to be able to kind of keep him, unless he's willing to say, hey, you guys took a chance on me and, gave me so much, I'll give you guys some sort of hometown discount, even though it's not really his hometown, but you guys catch my drift there.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. But then let's think about this too. Let's say that Mike Borgonzi gets a GM job this offseason and the Chiefs lose their assistant GM. Like, he's probably going to try to take some people with him. And after what happened at the parade between Trey Smith and his son, you think that didn't buy him some goodwill as not just a person, but the knowing that Borgonzi was also involved in the evaluation process and bringing him on in Kansas City. Like, I could see that if Borgonzi gets a job somewhere, I could see Trey being like his cornerstone guy that he brings in to help turn a franchise around.
That's an excellent point.
Somewhere else.
That was the moving on part was actually going to be me asking you about contracts, because I think it's an interesting piece that we haven't seen Bolton, Smith, or Creed get a deal this offseason, because they all three could have an extension done at any point this offseason. And all three of those guys play non-premium positions, according to the NFL, not according to us. This is what the NFL has told us. And there's a lot of conversation. Now, I know there's a ton of Mizzou homers and people are going to freak out. I don't know that when we're talking about paying guys at tops of markets or at near the tops of the markets, if middle linebacker is a place that you want to do that at necessarily.
I think the Chiefs pay. I think the Chiefs pay Nick Bolton.
I think they'll pay him just because
I think they're paying him top dollar no matter what. Yeah.
My thing is, when you look at these deals, I expected one of them to get done this offseason. One. Now, Nick Bolton's already said that he plans on getting it done next year, so that's kind of ship sailed. But with all the offensive line conversation and contracts, the reason that I wonder if they may keep Trey Smith is because I don't know that Joe Thuney's here next year. And not because the Chiefs say, we don't want you. I don't know that Joe doesn't say, I'm done, if they win again.
Mm-hmm.
And
a lot of things can change if you're a back-to-back Super Bowl champion, for all parties.
When you have this amount of options, and we're talking about an offensive, and Thuney's coming off a pec injury, and I don't know if anybody else watched the Trey Smith clips from the OL Masterminds where he was basically teaching some of the things to a lot of these guys.
Trey Smith is a very valuable asset, for sure.
He's going to get paid by somebody. Now, the Chiefs changed the guard market with Joe Thuney, and remember, everybody freaked out. And now, everybody and their mother is paying guards $20 million plus. So, they've always been ahead of where the league seems to be going, at least in this era. Now, they didn't used to be the case, trust me. We've all seen the horror stories of our pasts. But this generation of the Chiefs, this iteration, not generation, has always seemed to be a step or a half a step ahead of where the league is headed. Patrick's contract is an example. The Joe Thuney deal, all the other, there's lots of examples. So I wonder what them not making any moves with those three guys so far says about what their plans are for you, Charles.
I think, a lot of it is you just got to see what you have right now, because you speak about those positions not being premium positions, and they brought in
for the non-watching audience, I did air quote non-premium. It's not me.
Right. They did bring a lot of guys in at those positions. Like, you look at linebacker, they signed 3 undrafted free agent linebackers, and they're all really great athletes, talented athletes.
And they just paid one.
and obviously they just paid Drew, so that's a little bit. You got him on a long-term deal. If it ends up being that Bolton goes out and gets a contract elsewhere, and I think that the Chiefs would like to keep Bolton. I get that indication. I know the Spags would like to keep him. That defensive coaches tend to really enjoy what he brings. Maybe not from the full-on athletic standpoint, but from the mental standpoint, from his ability to call the defense and execute, and just the plays that he's made in big moments. I mean, don't forget not this last year's Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl prior, right?
2
on MVP.
Right.
Well, he should have, because it should have been 2 fumble returns for a touchdown and not 1.
It shouldn't have.
Right.
It shouldn't have. I'll say it shouldn't have.
Yeah, you and I will disagree about that forever.
I know.
That was
if it was us, we'd be pissed about it, though. I'm just, gotta be fair.
For those positions, I do think there's a sense of waiting to see what you have. Like, if it turns out that one of these backup centers ends up being a stud, maybe it's easier to move on and not pay. a Creed Humphrey. If it turns out that a guy like CJ Hansen is like, incredible right guard prospect, and in 2 years you think he could be a first team All Pro or even just a Pro Bowler, or even just a guy who can fill in, like maybe that's enough for you to say, okay, I'm not going to pay Trey Smith $22.5 million, $24.5 million a year to play right guard for me. And there's also the premium positions to consider too. I mean, you think about, Hollywood Brown, he's kind of on this 1-year deal. If he turns out to be a superstar in Kansas City, do you really want to let that get away after what you've just gone through at the wide receiver position? I feel like the answer's got to be no. I feel
plus like you got other guys on the horizon too, like Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis coming up, in a couple years. So it's like, we talk about how you really have to pick and choose of which, players you keep, and you can't keep everybody. But, the one thing that's kind of, I feel like the difference maker with especially these three guys, Bolton, Humphrey, and Trey Smith, is that they're just so much, I feel like, better than any other people we've seen these positions before. And obviously the impact they've had for these, back-to-back Super Bowl winning rosters is tremendous. And, it's one of those things, like, I think the Chiefs aren't necessarily in a rush to get a deal done with any of them, just in case something happens this year. Knock on wood, you don't want to see any guy get injured, but it could always happen. And so you're kind of gambling on one more year running back with this squad, trying to get the three-peat. And then, like I kind of referenced, like if you get a three-peat, like things can change for everybody. Joe Thuney might hang it up. Trey Smith might decide that, he's accomplished, he's got 3 rings. Let me just go get the biggest bag possible. It's, there's all these different scenarios that can kind of come into play. So the Chiefs, I think, are doing a really good job of hashing out some of their options early, in this process, getting a lot of different guys to look at, just in case. I still feel like they end up keeping both Creed and Trey somehow, some way. Obviously, it's going to be tough to keep everybody, and Thuney would be the most likely guy, I feel like, out of that group to not be there next year. So we'll have to see.
Before
that would be
because I know Tom's going to want to talk about this for a second. I'm going to read you Joe Thuney's contract for next year, because I think that matters in this conversation before we continue, just for some more context purposes. Joe Thuney, 2025, he's going to be here this year. Next year is the last year on his deal. According to Spot Track, that will be his age 33 season, and the cap hit is $27 million. Now, that's the almost identical cap hit to this year's cap hit, which is the exact. Actually, it's not almost. It is identical according to Spot Track. But the difference is this year's dead cap hit would be $23 million, so you're only saving like $3 million. Next year, Thuney's dead cap number is 10. Now, do you love $11 million or 11? Do you love $11 dead million for a guard? Not necessarily, but it does save you $17 million. So there's some things that could happen there, and I just that needed to be needed to be added for context. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was grabbing a very cute picture of Scout. Yeah, he's looking at me funny. He has his ears perked up. Man, it's hard to tell. I think Thuney could hang it up. You do have to, obviously, the contract, you got to look at that. It may be one of those, hey, we can rework it. I don't know. I'm sure there's some communications there, and that's on their mind. Because I also think, as much as he's been automatic, in his career, this is not disrespectful, but like you said, 33, 32, coming off a pretty significant injury, like we could see a dip in play too, right? That could be a factor. Or, we could see his body start to break down. We could see, and I'm not hoping for any of those things. Like he's been a cyborg, he's been reliable, but especially we talked about it with like Lucas, when it comes to big dudes, like it's hard. Those injuries are a little bit harder. The rehabs are a little bit harder, especially when you're trying to keep mass and trying to keep functional strength. I mean, Mitch Schwartz is a great example.
Core muscle for him. That's a huge core muscle.
He was an Iron Man, and then it takes There's a beard hair in my mouth. I'm a mess over here, man. So I just think I'm trying my best, but man, it's just been a weird day. But yeah, I think that it's something you got to monitor as an organization. As far as Creed and Trey, yes and no. I mean, if Kingsley plays out as your franchise tackle, then you're probably in good spots there, right? And then if you're moving on from the Tooney contract, then you could kind of squint at it and say, yeah, but can you afford to pay the top center contract and the top guard contract on a team that also has some pretty significant needs across the trenches on the defensive side, right? Because because then you're looking at, and again, you got to keep Nick Bolton, you got to keep, Trent McDuffie. There's other guys that are going to need contracts, here in the horizon. That's kind of the problem when you draft so well is you eventually have to pay them, and guys like Josh Williams and Jalen Watson and, even Najee Johnson. Like there's a whole list of guys who could really be outperforming those contracts, and that's awesome for them.
Justin Reed.
I'm not going to say nothing bad about Justin Reed because he's done nothing but good things to this team, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take the bait.
He might have a whole lot more value to his game now. He might be a really coveted free agent because teams are going to be like, "Hey, we want you to be our kickoff specialist," right?
That's true.
So, but just before we move on from the offensive line in totality, here's one option that I don't think enough people are thinking about. If Tooney does have a little bit, let's say he's only like 85% of the player he's been, which is still a damn good player, right? Then you have to start thinking, okay, what happens if I can get Tooney way below market? If I can get him on a deal that's not nearly as rich as the one I just had him on, if I can pay him, I don't have a ballpark number, but let's say like $15 million a year to be your starting guy at left guard for the next like 3 years or something, right? If you can get him way under market for something like that, knowing that, okay, I can't pay Creed what he wants, I can't pay Trey what he wants, I'm gonna have to build up this interior offensive line. Let's say that Kingsley turns out to be a great left tackle. So you got two pieces who are really good on the outside, at least in terms of pass protection, and Kingsley, Juwan Taylor. You got a veteran at left guard on the inside in terms of Tooney to help whoever is going to be playing center and right guard, most likely young players. I feel like that is a strong possibility. I feel like that might be a stronger possibility than a situation where you're keeping one of or both Creed and Trey.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them do it before of kind of rebuilding that with surrounding them with veterans and having the young rookies in the interior. They can make it work.
Yeah,
Andy Heck's a dang good ball coach, and they know how to utilize their offensive linemen correctly. So there's a good chance.
A good time to look at some of the 2025 draft prospects.
No, Tom. No, Tom.
No, it's freaking July. No.
Pull up the list real quick.
That's for your draft show. You guys can find that on our YouTube channel, Kingdom Recon.
Yeah, save that
Randy
for your own show, Tom.
Josh, they're really good. You guys, they can talk about the draft in July all they want. Not on this year.
We just updated the AtoZ Sports Slack channel from 2024 NFL Draft to 2025 NFL Draft. So that tells you it's coming. That tells you it's coming. Literally happened today.
I know. And here's the fun part. I'm actually going to get into prospect eval this year. I sat out last year because I had a ton of in real life stuff going on. So I'm unfortunately about to get into the college film already too. I'm aware. I'm just trying to put it off as long as possible because I don't have the glorious love for it that Tom has.
It's a great year to do it because you can do that and take that knowledge that you have and bring it to EA Sports College Football 25.
Hey, that's the easiest way to check on players and figure out what they are, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so that's we covered the offensive line situation pretty much in the entirety. Now, we still got a long training camp off season ahead of us, so we don't want to cover every single position right now. That was a big one, offensive line, obviously with a lot of different questions, young guys, young pieces. One more area that we should focus on, Kyle. What would you say? What do you think?
So for me, I know that everybody is really interested in talking about the receiver room, and I think we're going to spend most of the offseason talking about the receivers again, like we did last year.
Yeah.
What I will briefly on the receiver note, this is not the topic that I want to talk about, but just quickly, because of the news that came out today, no on Brandon Ayuk. Let me just go ahead and throw that out for everybody on earth. I do not want to give up any top 3 round picks. So he's already off the table because they're going to ask for at least a second.
They're going to ask for something,
I'm sorry, I'm out. I don't. You watched him play with me and you at wide receiver last year, and they won a freaking Super Bowl. I don't need to give up that much for a wide receiver. He's having trouble getting paid by the 49ers. So anyway,
I'm glad you declared that for us, because
I just wanted to get that out because I've seen it all over everywhere, and the news only dropped the second time that he requested a trade like 3 hours ago. So because some people forget, he technically requested a trade privately with sources like 4 months ago.
Yeah.
So, but the tight end room, I think the tight end room is more intriguing and more important early in camp for a lot of reasons. We saw down the stretch last year that Noah Gray started doing all the stuff Blake Bell was doing better than Blake Bell, which is why Blake Bell is probably not on this roster this year. And he kind of took over that role. What I find intriguing is the other 2 guys that came in this offseason. You have Irv Smith, who is a journeyman, oft injured, got a history, taking a chance on a guy. Hopefully he can bounce. I don't think it happens. He's your 4th tight end. He's probably a practice squad call up if they need him, if he makes it back to the practice squad. The 4th round pick, Jared Wiley out of TCU. He's got an egregious amount of upside. He is 6'6". He is big, tall, athletic. It looks different than it does with a lot of other tight ends. And I'm not so sure that if he, and we heard a lot of things about him at minicamp and in rookie OTAs and how well he was doing. And if he goes out and shows stuff in training camp, I think that tight end room is one of your deeper rooms on the team, and it provides them real weaponry to give Andy Reid a part of his playbook that we haven't seen as much of over the last couple of seasons, which is 2 and 3 tight ends. And there's also a rumor we might see a fullback again this year because of the UDFA kid that they might use as a halfback too, because he can do both. Carson Steele, right? Isn't that kid's name?
Yeah.
So I think that tight end room and what happens in training camp and what that opens up for this offense, another level to this, because we know every year Andy wants to add more and more and more, and that freaking Cheesecake Factory menu he holds up every week gets bigger and bigger. I'm interested to see if Wiley can even kind of Jody Fortson it, if that makes sense, what this offense looks like with a fully functioning three depth at tight end. And I love Blake. I went to high school with Blake in the same town, watched him play growing up. Quarterback.
Blake's a dog.
Great.
Blake was a dog.
Love him for the Super Bowls, but he had limitations at tight end. He was not excellent in a couple of areas. And I think with all 3 of these guys, Irv Smith excluded, they're all so well-rounded that they're all kind of interchangeable, even though they're neither one are going to be as good as Travis, because duh. But it gives them more opportunity to lighten Travis's load throughout the year if he's solid. It gives them more opportunity to kind of disperse things. So I really want to get everybody's thoughts on what they're looking for out of the tight end room, especially out of the young kid and Charles to start with in training camp.
Now, you say he's not as good as Travis. I heard some things.
I don't want to put that on that kid yet. That's not fair. He's a 4th round freaking draft pick. Everybody take a breath.
Very mold.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that I've heard some things that I would classify as blasphemy about this kid because, I mean, you can't. You're right. You can't compare him. You can't put
That's
Travis.
Not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair.
not
It's not fair.
We talk all the time about setting realistic expectations on this podcast. That's not fair.
He is his own player, and he brings a lot of special things to the table that I don't think they've had. Obviously, you mentioned Jody Fortson. He's like just slotted in at the Jody Fortson role. That's where they've been using him. Red zone, he's that big target. I think he brings a little bit more to the table than Jody did, though, from like a run and catch standpoint. I think he's a little bit of a better athlete in that regard. And I think that, you're going to see a little bit of creativity with him, and you could see it early on. I mean, if we're talking a situation where Rashee Rice gets suspended at the beginning of the year, which Andy Reid commented on that today and said he hadn't heard anything yet. So we still don't know, right?
Oh boy, Willie
No
Gay
idea.
all over again.
Just
Random
love not
week
knowing
3
anything.
suspension for no reason at all when they could have done it before the season.
So stupid.
Right. So if let's say Rashee Rice gets suspended for whatever it is, 6 games, 8 games, what have you.
I'm be surprised if it's more than 6, but I would understand 8.
You're going to get a situation where the Chiefs are going to need someone to kind of fill in that run and catch type of role. And I think you're going to see them utilize a lot more of the multiple tight end sets. So 2 tight ends, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, even heavier if you want to go that heavy. But
that's why I mentioned Carson Steele.
Yeah. So I do think that there's potential for him there and for the Chiefs to get him on the field, even at the same time as Travis Kelce. I won't be shocked if we see that pretty often this season.
That's a matchup nightmare for defenses.
Right. And they're going to be paying a lot of attention to Trav. They're going to be paying a lot of attention to, some of these other receivers on the field. You put Hollywood, Xavier Worthy, and Travis Kelce on the field, and then you throw another tight end out there.
Exactly.
No one's going to be thinking about that other tight end. Let me tell you.
Stretch the field in that.
You're getting the worst coverage guy they've got.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of potential for him to have a really strong rookie season. I actually wrote a couple weeks back about how he has potential to even break rookie tight end records in Kansas City this year if things go accordingly. If he has that type of opportunity. Obviously, if Rashee Rice is there, that's going to be a little bit more tough for him to do that. But I feel like the potential is there for this offense to be very versatile with their personnel usage and mixing and matching tight ends. They got some interesting skill sets at running backs. The receiving room is miles better than it's been, and that's exciting, right? I mean, we could see something a little bit closer to, say, the 2018 offense than
calm down.
than what we saw last year.
Extremely excited if that's the
that
case.
would be beautiful. I tell you what,
Jesus.
that would be something great.
We get 2018 offense with this defense, they're going to win 70-7 every week.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. I really like the addition of Jared Wiley. I think he really fits exactly what they want to do this year on offense and every year, really. I mean, I feel like just the profile of tight end that he is fits in so well with what Andy likes with tight ends. I think pairing him with Travis as a 1-2 combo will be pretty solid for the next couple years. It's just like you said, when you have all that speed and all that attention, like you can very easily sneak in those 12 and 13 personnels and get some solid production out of both Jared Wiley and Noah Gray this year. So the tight end room, I think it's definitely going to be very improved. We haven't really seen a very full-fledged tight end room the past couple years. It's been Travis, and then there's been a couple other pieces. Jody was there for a little bit while he was healthy. He wasn't healthy very often.
Noah's been very solid. He's just
Noah has solid, and he's gotten better each year.
Hold on. Let's give Noah a little bit more love than that. I mean, he was a 5th round pick out of Duke when he was drafted. Everyone said, "Huh? Who? What?" And then we didn't hear anything about him until he was a majestic white horse on a beach. But then it took him a while, and I'm going to sound like a little bit of a damper here, but I want to encourage so tight end is a very tough position to adapt to at the professional level. It's also a very hard position to predict success at. If you don't believe me, go look at the track record of first-round tight ends in the last 10 years. fact that the last like
It's not good.
yeah. So or the last 20 years, whatever. I'm gonna.
What round was
steal
Travis
for
Kelce
you
drafted in?
from Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, which is when it comes to tight ends, you have to think bonds, not stocks. Meaning you're going to have incremental investment, and that return is not going to look super high. And then over time, you invest, and then you get something really solid. Versus maybe other skill positions like wide receiver or running back, which are more like a stock where you put $5 in, and then all of a sudden it's $10 and $15, and it grows really fast. And you have that, initial return on investment. With tight end, sometimes it does take, and part of that is because it is one of the most complicated skill positions there is. They have to do a little bit of everything. They have to work with the O-line. They have to work as wide receivers. They have to understand the quarterback. There's a lot of pieces there. And, Andy Reid, famously simple offense, right? So, there are a lot of tools.
Well, I don't know why that took a second to register and I laughed late, but I'm sorry.
Jared Wiley has a lot of the tools that can make him be successful in the NFL. But when we talk about setting realistic expectations, unless the sentence is, man, Travis Kelce is doing a great job at mentoring Jared Wiley, you probably shouldn't have them in the same sentence together. That's all. Or both of these players are tight ends on the Chiefs. Outside of that, let's not do anything beyond that. But yes,
you're right.
Think bonds, not stocks. And we may not see a huge return this season, especially with the way the depth chart is. And honestly, Noah Gray has earned a pretty healthy spot at that number 2 position. And honestly, and he's one of those guys who's probably going to go get paid somewhere else. But there's, I would say, about a quarter of the league that Noah Gray would be the starting tight end on.
Yeah. And I'll say my statement, it wasn't a shot at Noah Gray necessarily, but like Tom was saying, it's a little bit slower of a progression. And now I think, this is what, year 3 or year 4 for him?
3, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think year 3. So it's, at this point, he's developed into a very solid tight end too. And so now you pair him obviously with Kelce, and then you have Jared Wiley, who I think just has a little bit higher of a floor than Noah Gray might have had coming out. That's why I believe that this tight end room might be the most full-fledged one that we've seen, because you have a more developed Noah Gray now. You have another kind of solid receiving threat as a tight end that's probably hopefully going to be a little more reliable. And I think it'll be a solid option. And then obviously you even got guys like Irv Smith, who we didn't talk about, who's kind of an underrated. The Chiefs didn't make too many free agent signings this year, and he was one of the handful that they actually did. So. Who knows what that future might look like for him. Anything's possible, potentially a 4 tight end. I don't know. But yeah, tight end group, I think it'll be a solid group to watch, obviously, with the rest of this offense this year, which we'll talk about a lot more. So yeah, to pivot to one more side of the ball here, just to sprinkle our feet in some of the topics of the defensive side. We've talked a lot of offense today. Big positions, big battles to look forward going into the training camp. Obviously, defensive back is a very crowded room with the loss of L'Jarius Sneed. There's a huge gap for another starting corner. We talked about it a little bit when we were talking about Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie and all these guys. Defensive back is going to be probably one of the most interesting positions to watch this training camp, just because of all the guys who are going to get chances. Obviously, we see guys like Najee Johnson coming back and getting a full shot, being healthy this year after missing last year to an injury. So out the gates, Charles, early thoughts on the defensive back room, some of the new additions, some of the returning faces, and how you might see it shaping up, especially early on in training camp.
I think it's nice because this room's just really deep, which is what you need after losing a talent like L'Jarius Sneed. You need that depth. And there's really just any number of ways it can shake out. I think really the only given is McDuffie's going to start. He's potentially going to be starting outside this year,
outside, yeah.
Not
I don't
inside.
even think it's a question. I think he's your number 1 outside corner. Period. Into the story. No questions asked. I don't think there's. I think if they put him in the slot, it's just because they're trying to do different things with blitzes and whatnot and disguises. But his true traditional pure role is number one corner. I'm on your best receiver. Let's get it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the case too. But when it comes to inside, you're talking about Nick Jones, Chamari Connor. Those two guys are the guys who are kind of in the named conversation by Spags during mandatory minicamp. So who's going to come out on top there? Are they both going to use them both, right? And then you've got just a bunch of other guys who could be on the field in that nickel package, right? You're looking at Najee Johnson, who's someone who's tracking to start last year. Is he going to be the guy who gets the chance, who's going to be on the field in those situations? Is it going to be Josh Williams, who has stepped up in some big moments and played some meaningful snaps for this team? It's going to be Jalen Watson, who is not playing right now. He's going to be on the PUP list, or at least Andy Reid indicated that he might start on the PUP list. He had a torn labrum that he played through most of last season.
All year.
Yeah, basically all year. I think he said he
week
got
two, right?
Week 2, yeah. So then he played through it the whole rest of the year,
which sucks, by the way, guys. Just in case anybody was curious.
Just an incredible display of toughness. Like that had to earn him some props with not only the coaching staff, but training staff
teammates
and whatnot. Yeah, all of that. That's just. That's like almost as insane as Nick Allegretti tearing his elbow in the game and just keep going. Right?
I don't need it. It's fine.
But that's for a whole season versus just a game, right? So I just that's pretty incredible. And to think that I've just named 5 guys who could potentially, any combination of them could end up being the starters opposite McDuffie. That's a really good situation to be in. And then I'm not even naming guys like the kid from the Cowboys who Joseph, I think is his name.
Calvin Joseph.
Calvin Joseph.
Yeah. Lion, wasn't he at one point?
I don't think so. But you got Miles Battle, also a really nice undrafted free agent out of Utah, very, very strong athlete. And then you've got a 6th round draft pick in Kamal Hayden, who's already earning comparisons to Chiefs legend Bashaud Breeland. So I'm like, come on, man. You got a really, really strong group of cornerbacks right now. And I would feel really great if I'm the Chiefs, or if I'm a Chiefs fan right now, because like any combination of those guys, however it shakes out, you're probably in a good spot. I don't think there's a situation where you're, one, lacking for depth, and 2, lacking for a starter who can potentially fill in for a guy like a L'Jarius Sneed. He might not be, that shutdown type of corner that Sneed is, but I think they're going to find someone who's suitable enough that the drop-off's not going to be as bad as you might expect it to be.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be. There's so many options, I think, and outside people who don't follow the Chiefs as closely probably were very confused why the Chiefs, moved on from L'Jarius Sneed so easily, and this would be the reason why, folks. This would be the reason why. It's because there's just so many names behind them that can step up, so many faces that could really, it's anyone's job. And like you said, the rotations that they can have, it seems like they all have a very dog mentality in there. It's kind of that. We talked about the what they call themselves, the defensive backs from the 2022 class.
The fantastic
Fab Five.
Fantastic Five. The fabulous.
Yeah.
And wasn't there 6 of them though?
No, just 5 of them. Just 5. Trent, Brian Cook, Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, Najee Johnson.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they made T-shirts made. They got T-shirts. They got T-shirts made. It was great. Whatever I can't think of the franchise. God, I couldn't think of the name of the.
Yeah, and then
they produced.
Yeah, so it'll be a fun. Like I said, it'll be a very fun battle to watch. Especially, obviously, they're going to be tested very, very well by this wide receiver room in training camp, and going up against Patrick Mahomes, that's never easy to do, even if it is training camp. So, Scout has made an appearance. Let's go.
Let's go. Scout's very excited about training camp.
Yeah.
What did Scout think about this DB room, Tom?
He was growling and barking, so I think he pretty amped himself.
Mentality, I told you.
big Kamal Hayden fan here. He also thinks that it's going to be hard to replace L'Jarius Sneed, but they've got enough bodies. And even though I don't think you can find a one-to-one replacement, Scout says that you have all the tools in the room to replace him. So you just got to play the matchup game. Don't you, Scout? Yeah, he agrees.
Yes.
That's his analysis.
Yes,
the depth and the conversation is all interesting. I found it extremely interesting that Charles listed, I don't know, 7 guys before he got to the person that he wrote about like 3 days ago being a guy that needs to have a big training camp in Kamal Hayden. So like that tells you, like, that's a testament to the depth that Charles was talking about. Is like he wrote an article about these guys a couple days ago, and it took him 7 names to get to the guy he wrote about in his article. So that's a good problem to have. The other good problem to have is Dave Merritt still coaches in Kansas City as the DB coach. And I don't think we talk enough about the continuity amongst the staff that exists, because usually, and we've talked about this before, Super Bowl teams do not get their staffs left intact like the Chiefs have.
That's been a very crazy
year
thing that people, and maybe we might jinx it by talking about it right now, but the Spags has had basically the very same coaching staff his entire tenure here.
Yeah. So I think that's all extremely interesting. Kamal Hayden is the last thing that I really want to ask Charles about for me. I don't know if you guys have anything else. We can probably wrap if you don't after this, but because Kamal Hayden's a rookie, and because rookies and quarterbacks are the ones that reported today. By the way, that's why everybody was freaking out about the Jalen Watson thing. I know, we get it. It'll be all right. There's plenty of bodies. So that all said, with it just being QBs and rooks and rehab guys who will not be participating if they're just in there rehabbing right now, the next couple of days, they're going to be getting he's going to get heads up with Xavier Worthy a lot, I would assume. And I think that's going to be the thing that I'm most curious about. I'm interested to see what you think about the couple of DBs that are rooks that are there, and the couple of wide receivers, and if there's any other matchups that are really even close to like that with this rookie group in this first couple of days of training camp.
I think that's going to be a really good matchup. I just think in general, I mean, Hayden's hungry because he was having a hell of a season for the Tennessee Volunteers, got cut short by injury, and even so, he still had one of like lowest passer ratings allowed. Like just really just impressive stuff. And I feel like he's got a lot to prove because of that. I feel like had he maybe not got hurt, you're talking about a guy who's maybe not a day 3 pick, maybe he's a late day 2 pick, right? And so I feel like that is a motivating factor, something that could push a guy like that to really go out there and compete. Obviously, in this early portion against Worthy, that's going to be tough matchup. But if you can just battle with him and make sure that he doesn't get you every time, and show that you're willing to battle and that you're willing to go out there and compete, that goes a long way with the coaching staff. And then maybe you get a few more favorable matchups when you're out there and the rest of training camp and the veterans arrive and start putting things together. It's the cornerback room is interesting in Kansas City because the system that they run is quite simple. The safety position, I would actually say, is more pivotal or vital to Spags' defense than the cornerback position, because really they're calling for the scheme and the look for the corners. And I've been told by guys that like on a given play there's like maybe like 3 things that they could call that they're running. Like it's not Andy Reid's like you have to know every single play for every single position. Like it's a lot less complex. And I think how that works out schematically, combined with how just incredible of a coach Dave Merritt is. By the way, aside here, I think he's not going to just be like a defensive coordinator one day. I think he's on track to maybe be an NFL head coach.
100%.
And hopefully not soon, because I want to see him continue to dominate here in Kansas City. And but anyhow, selfishly, of course.
Oh yeah.
But as I was saying, with this cornerback group, I mean, without having those, significant responsibilities and deep dives that you have to learn, it really allows you to get out there and play quick. And I think we kind of saw that with some of these young guys, the Fab Five. You were talking about them when they came in. Yeah, the cornerbacks got out there and they were able to play pretty quickly. The safeties, Brian Cook, he took a little bit more time, right? So
thank you for mentioning that, because, and briefly before we let Garrett and Tom go on the subject, I should have worded it better. I said wide receivers and corners. I should have said DBs and weapons, because the other rookie that's an impact rookie potentially on the defensive side of the ball is not a corner, and the other weapon on the offensive side of the ball as a rookie is not a wide receiver.
Right.
So that said, we already talked a ton about Jared Wiley. Talk to me about Jaden Hicks versus Jared Wiley all rookie training camp.
Yeah, I think
because Jaden Hicks, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, your top safety on the board, and like pretty much everybody's top safety on the board in this draft that went in what round?
Fourth round. It was he was highly ranked among a lot of people that are very respectable. It was a weird group. I don't know if we could say there was a consensus top guy, and it changed a lot. But I definitely good value and exciting player to have around.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Hicks, he played a lot of like box and strong safety in college, and the Chiefs had him lining up at free safety in the OTAs and the mandatory camps.
Oh, he got range.
I feel like they like to mix it up, let guys learn one position. If it's not working out, or if that vision that they had for him isn't quite that, okay, let's put him back at strong safety. I'm curious to see if they'll let him show that versatility, because the safety group's also like super competitive too, right? Yeah. Like that's gonna be a tough group to crack. You got Justin Reed and Brian Cook, who are your surefire starters, right? You've got a guy like Dan Bush, who's been a spot starter for the Chiefs, who's been phenomenal. You've got Jaden Hicks coming in as a rookie. You've got motion detected at the front door. I don't know, but you've got just some of these guys. You got Trey Dean, who came to the team last year on the practice squad, who really phenomenal, talented UDFA, who did nicely with the Jets last season. And I feel like I'm even forgetting someone too. Oh, Chamari Connor.
Chamari Connor.
The guy who started a lot last year.
He's just everything player. Yeah.
So you've got a lot of guys who could potentially, fit in there. And I feel like for a guy like Hicks to kind of crack that group and make sure that he makes his mark, being versatile, being able to fill, free safety, strong safety, can he play, matchup. Yeah, special teams, can you play and match up against these tight ends and one-on-one coverage? And I think we're going to get to see a lot of that early here in camp with going against Wiley. So, and then the other tight end rookie who's out there, Baylor Cupp. So I think that'll be good for him to kind of get those reps against those guys. And I'm excited for him, man. I think he could be a really, really strong piece in that secondary too, and really help cement that group and make sure that they got the best guys out there.
Yeah, the defensive back group definitely going to be a good one to watch. And like Charles said, it's the safety group is really kind of Spags' bread and butter, where he really dials up guys in a lot of different ways. So that's corner will be a fun one to watch. Obviously, once we get more live action, we'll kind of see how they're using people, what they're using them more. I know they're going to experiment with guys everywhere, like we always see, but will be very fun to monitor that all the different faces and names that will be all over the secondary. That's the crazy thing about Spags' defenses, is that you'll see them literally everywhere. There will be players everywhere. They will be rotating. They will be spinning. They will be, it's if it's one thing that we know that Spags is going to use his DBs well. And
third safety and slot corner are going to be very interesting all training camp.
Very impactful positions. So with that, that will wrap up this introductory training camp talk discussion. Still a lot to go. Still, obviously, many weeks to go of live action. Once we start getting some clips and action rolling in, we'll be back and keep on keeping on. So with that, Charles, we very much appreciate you coming on. Let everybody know real quick where they can find you and all of your content.
Yeah, at Gold MCT NFL on X, and you can find my Chiefs content over at AtoZsports.com. And yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Always a pleasure.
Yep, we'll definitely have you on.
Thank you for jumping on with all your articles you wrote over the last couple of days. We had to have you. I saw
number one
that pop out
source.
and I was like,
number one source. If you just need one person on X to follow for everything related to Chiefs, I promise you, Charles will talk about it. Oh, actually, real quick before we get out of here, I guess the one big non-football news that happened in Chiefs Kingdom. Congratulations to the Mahomeses on their third child upcoming.
We'd be remiss to not mention that.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. But that's big. Child number 3 on the way for them.
And according to Patrick, he's done.
Is he?
That's what he said today.
I mean, they're running out of
one baby for every Super Bowl. So
yep. Well, that might get crazy. Might get some Phil Rivers numbers up there. For real.
Yeah.
They're running out of medals to name the kids.
I was gonna say the precious metals category is getting limited here.
That is true. So that's cool. That's another Mahomes, little baby Mahomes that we'll see walking around the sidelines in a couple years. Should be fun.
I feel like it's the more and more we get to see of Patrick, the more and more he's just one of us. If anybody saw how he watched Bobby Witt Jr.'s home run derby last night,
that is exactly This is the same posture that I was in. I was the same distance from my TV.
I mean, speaking of him being one of us, he also mentioned in his press conference, first year he's bringing a TV so he can play college football 25
and watch the Olympics
watch the Olympics. Yeah,
one of us.
He is truly one of us. He's already probably got the Texas Tech Red Raiders to a national title or two.
Oh, the tournaments between the guys in the dorms on those consoles for that game are going to be crazy. And there's going to be so much trash talk because they all went to different schools, So that's why they're all going to play each other with their schools.
So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in and watching us. We will be back next week with some more training camp content. Be sure to check us out, Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts at. And yeah, we will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.